And hello. Another impromptu one, which might not be very long because I think I heard the boys stirring. So, while I wait for you all, here is another Tavernello, a white this time, still kind of fizzy, and pretty fruity and light, but I don't like very strong wine. Well, hello Slantish Affair Bear. It was two people? No, two, four? I don't know. I don't know if the count works. Hopefully the audio and everything is fine. I just had a nice chat with a decent dude. I didn't know he'd been a fan for some time, but really enjoyed it. Really a good guy. Who's also become a sede, by the way, so that's always good to know. Ethan W., good to see you, Kurgan. Finally got a chance to catch you live again. Oh, you're most welcome, Ethan. I dimly remember you, because terrible with names, and your face is just an E in a turquoise bubble. So, well, like I said, it is a random one. Hi everybody, Jesus is King of Kings, indeed he is, backstabber. So, yeah, any Q&As you want to do, now's the time. Any dumb questions you want to ask, now's the time. You won't get banned right away. And, oh, any of you that live in Texas, preferably near a little town called Eustis, I think it's called, that have got work for a very reliable, extremely reliable man of pretty much of any sort, not IT though, do drop me an email, because there's an awesome set of guy in Eustis, Texas that is looking for, you know, better work, let's say. He's employed and has been a very, very loyal employee, I'd say, but he'd like to step up a little bit. So any of you that are in that sort of thing, let me know, drop me an email. Hello, Woolly Ram. Oh, I wonder, I'm not sure if Woolly Ram is working tonight or not. Is it? Oh, it's Friday nights he gets free, I think, so he might be at work. But hello, all of you. So yeah, if you've got any specific topic you want me to cover, let me know. Otherwise, I'm sure I can come up with a few. We've had... Hello, Caleb. Caleb says, Hail Kurgan. Nobles say this. Protestants can't read or do math. this is... Well, what can you say to that other than yes, correct. And LS16, hello. So, yeah, quite a few things came to mind, but actually something that just popped into my head now is the littlest one, who's a girl. She's only a year old, but she's got the same temperament as the little Viking. But because she's a girl, she does everything with a smile. So she unfortunately also has the Hulk smash thunder slap. But the thing about her is that she'll give you like a vicious slap in the face, and then she'll like smile at you and give you a hug. So it's sort of like, what the fuck, you know? With the little Viking, he just keeps smashing you. So there isn't any confusion there. It's clear. Oh. Son of a gun, M35. Did Alex Baldwin kill that woman on purpose? You know, I don't know the details, but did he fire the thing twice? Because he killed her and wounded some other guy. So if he fired twice, I'd be inclined to think that something wasn't going well there. If it only fired once and like shot through the woman and hit the other guy as well or whatever, then I could quite clearly put it down to the utter incompetence of Alec Baldwin, who is a fucking idiot. He's also a Democrat and an anti-gun guy. And apparently, somebody said cold gun and put it down, and then he picked it up and fucking shot it. Now, once again, the absolute idiocy of somebody that picks up anything that looks like a gun and pulls the trigger on it while aiming it at another human being that they don't intend to kill. Only a complete fucking moron will do that. So, Alec Baldwin, you're a complete fucking moron, regardless of whether you intended to or not. You just don't do that, you don't pick up a gun. As I've said many times before, I've worked with a gun for many years. At home, alone, if I'm just cleaning my gun or whatever, I've unloaded it, it's unloaded, put the gun down, and it was very unlikely that I'd put the gun down somewhere in my house and walk away from it for a couple of meters, even if I was completely alone. Very unlikely. I'm just trained not to do that. But I have done it on occasion. But if I've left the gun, say, on the table or whatever, and I go to the kitchen to make myself a cup of tea and I come back to it, I don't pick up that gun, and I'm alone at home and it's empty. I'm the one that emptied it. I don't pick up that gun and pull the trigger on it while aiming it at the floor. I'll open it and check it. Why the fuck you would ever pick up a random gun and pull the trigger on it? But people do. I've seen a guy in a gun shop do it. The gun shop guy do it. This moron came in with a gun, a revolver, and he said, "Oh, yeah." And just the way he pulled it out, I was pointing it at everybody with his finger on the trigger. I just stood behind him and I'm like, yeah, this guy's just clearly dangerous from criminal stupidity. And then he put the gun down on the counter to make the other guy watch. The other guy was, the guy behind the counter was like, okay, let's just put the gun down. And then opened it and unloaded it and said, oh, it's got a problem with the click. So the gun shop guy unloaded it and then was clicking it, and another guy comes in, he puts the gun down, he goes to do something, he comes back and he pulls the trigger on it and boom, he shoots a fucking bullet straight through the computer and about this far away from the guy that was at the end of the counter, because he'd left the gun there, which he had unloaded, and then he came back to it after he'd walked away from it, and the fucking moron that owned the gun reloaded it while the guy walked away. So he came back, pulled the trigger on it without checking it. I would have never made that mistake. You can only make those kind of mistakes if you are an idiot that does not understand how to deal with guns. So yeah, shit happens. So I think it's more likely that Alec Baldwin is just a fucking moron. That's what I think. Slanty Chauffeur Bear says, I saw a video by Count Dankula about Vlad the Impaler. It reminded me of you. I don't know, because there's so much propaganda, but apparently Vlad the Impaler impaled women and children, and he did some pretty sick shit. I read an account once that because he'd impaled women and children, one of his guards vomited as a result of watching this while he was having dinner, watching the people that he impaled. And as a result of that, he said, oh, you've got a weak stomach. And he had him impaled as well for puking. So, yeah, I don't know. I think Vlad was a pretty sick fuck. Undoubtedly, he stopped the Muslim invasions. And the people of Romania pretty much consider him a hero. So, who knows? I don't know if what I read about him was true. I wasn't there. I haven't investigated it. It kind of put me off. But, I don't know. Maybe he was a good guy, but I haven't looked into it enough to have an idea one way or the other. Woolly Ram says, here's a dumb question. Why do you think the new leftists of California are becoming complete Puritans? You gotta catch me up there. I don't know anything that happens in California because it hasn't sunk off into the sea yet. What do you mean by that? Puritans in what way? About the vaccine? I'm guessing. I don't know. Wade Wilson says, Ciao Kurgan, how are things in Italy right now? I heard this nonsense of mandatory vaccine is in full effect. Yeah, it's in full effect, except the port of Trieste has been completely shut down. The police is trying to clear out the dock workers who've just blocked the whole port, and Genoa as well. And my wife just sent me about a minute ago something. Let me just see. I haven't read it yet. Livorno. Yeah. The head of the police brigade in Italy is outraged at the orders he has received to deal with unarmed protesters. Yeah, that's happened also in Rome. One of the head police in Rome was a woman. She basically said, fuck your job. I'm here to protect people, and this shit is bullshit. I'm not doing that. I'm just looking at this Italian guy who's the head of the police in Italy, who's like just losing his shit. I'm not listening to the sound yet, so I'm curious to know what he's saying actually. And in Livorno, out in forts as Italian towns and cities have filled the streets against COVID passports. You see, the Italians are not really a governable people. So yeah, whatever the media is telling you, there was something else. Somebody sent me a video of a guy in, I think it was in the main square of Trieste, I think, where, so he's got his phone showing what the live webcam of the square is showing, and it's showing an empty square, and he is in the square with another guy filming him showing the phone, saying, look, this is what's on the live webcam of this town, of this square that we're in. Now look at the fucking square. The square is filled with people saying bullshit ass liars. So it's not going so well, especially because most of the armed forces in Italy, at least 50% of them, know the whole vaccine scam is a scam, and a lot of them that have taken the jab went to get antibody tests and saw that they got injected with saline. So about 50% of the armed forces in Italy are aware that the vaccine they took was a fake one, just so that they would think like, oh well, these protesters that are against the vax, they're just being idiots because I took it and I'm fine, so it's fine. But they've realized, no, that's what they're trying to do to us. So yeah, Italy is not quite dead yet. So yeah. Carlos Santos Ramos says, idiot or wicked, referring to Alec Baldwin. Carlos, embrace the power of the word and. Yeah, exactly. Caleb says, doesn't matter if you just check the gun, treat every weapon as if it were loaded. Yeah, precisely. I mean, it's not hard to do. Wade Wilson says, Alec Baldwin is of the world. I think those people are more prone to have unfortunate accidents like that. Well, one can only hope. And Ethan says, you mentioned a while back that you worked in finance. No, I don't. Do you mind elaborating on the experience? I recall you saying that you left after you realized how bad it was. Oh, no, I never worked in finance. I was a pretty young dude, about 18, 19, something like that. I had a friend who had a pretty tragic situation at home. But he was into this stuff, and he said, listen, this firm is going to go public. Their shares are going to fucking hit the roof. We're going to make a lot of money if we can buy the shares. So we just need to write to people who've got shares and offer to buy them. And we did. We bought them for like 25 cents or whatever it was at the time. And then they went to like a few bucks. So, we were just kids, but I'd made enough money to leave home, which was a good thing because at that time I wasn't getting on with my father at all. And given our temperament, it was likely one of us was going to get shot. So I left home with my 16-year-old girlfriend. I was 19 years old at the time. And I went as far as I could go from where they were, which, the seaside stopped me. So I ended up in Cape Town. And then my friend he got into finance. I looked at it a little bit. I did one other trade and I thought, nah, this is bullshit. And I realized it was a scam. It was just a giant Ponzi scheme. And I thought, well, this can't last. But if you want much more in-depth and very similar experience to what I had, but, I'm very good at extrapolating from very few data points. So that was my whole dip toe in it type thing. If you want to read a book that really describes that whole process quite well, read a book called Liar's Poker by... I forget. He's written a few books all about finance. Liar's Poker was this guy who basically got into the finance game almost by mistake, and he left it because it was just so unethical and so scummy. And it's a very well written book. I think it's called Michael Lewis, the guy who wrote it, if memory serves me, but don't quote me, I might be wrong. Read the book Liar's Poker. It's well written, it's quite funny, it's a good book. And then he's a financial writer. He wrote several others. He's the guy who wrote The Big Short, which was also made into a film with Christian Bale in it. So yeah, Liar's Poker, The Big Short, and then I think he wrote two others that I can't remember the title of. One was about the bankers that use the computer algorithm. So they need a computer algorithm that's faster, so they need an optic cable to go through some farmlands or whatever, and they pay people stupid money just to have like the more direct route, so that they save 1/1,000,000th of a second, because that translates to so many transactions every second or whatever. Yeah, I've had a few run-ins with people that are in finance. When I worked as a bodyguard, I worked for some billionaires that were in finance, and actually quite a nice guy. I didn't work for him directly. I worked for somebody related to him, who is not a nice guy at all, but who's not necessarily in finance. He was just a billionaire from old money. And the guy that introduced me to him was certainly a very wealthy millionaire at least, and he was in finance. And he was actually a decent guy, but I've met many of these people in my time as bodyguard and other things that I've done, women I've met, things like that. I don't think I'd last a week working in that environment, because I'd end up punching somebody in the face or doing the wrong thing, or I just walk out of it. It is a completely soulless environment. You must know that traders are some of the worst people on the planet. We did a job in the city, so that City, the bank, City has got like 2 skyscrapers in London, and I did a job refurbishing the public areas and the toilets in one of those buildings, in the City Square building, which, interesting thing, one of the bankers supposedly jumped out of one of the windows of that building. I'll come to that. But anyway, when we did this refurb for the toilets, we had to get specially pre-marked, pre-dented sort of metal plates for the backing at the back of the toilets. The toilets couldn't have they had to have special reinforcing that hung them off the wall. And the reason for this was because the traders would go in there and then they would try and kick the toilet broken, or they'd kick the back wall and they'd scuff the thing if it was made of wood. And we had to get these specially made stainless steel toilet roll holders that could only hold 2 toilet rolls, and they were like super hard to get into. You need a special key so that they couldn't take out the toilet rolls and clog the bog with it, because that's what they did. And we had to replace all of them because the first batch that was ordered as rectangular, which is what was on the spec. But then the project manager changed it, so they had to pay for it. And we had to get these toilet roll holders that were rectangular at the bottom, but it had a very steep slant at the top. The reason for that being that they couldn't put cocaine on it and snort it off there. And the toilets only had the toilet. They didn't have toilet seats because they would get broken, whatever. So they could either only snort coke off the floor, which they wouldn't do because they tend to piss on it, and or the rim of the toilet, which again would be pissed on, crapped on, and whatever. And there was no tank that was visible because it was hidden inside the wall. We also had to have special grouting in the tiles in the toilets, because the same grouting that they use in prison, because they would just piss all over the floor and the urine would eventually eat away the normal grouting. So they had to have this special grouting that they use in prisons. And that's just the toilets. They're the most sick, perverted, twisted fucks that you'll ever have the mispleasure of meeting. I would genuinely hang out with bank robbers and certain types of murderers before I knowingly hang out with traders or stuff like that. And no word of a lie, no joke. Pharmagrady says, do you think geology could be mapped and analyzed to play back or reconstruct past cataclysms? Would it be useful for locating lost cities? It's a very good question, and I think yes. I think we now probably have the satellite and technological stuff to do that, and people have found ancient cities by looking at satellite and Google images and so on. I do also think that stuff's being doctored by the powers that be, so you probably wouldn't get as much information, but if you had the raw data, that I think, yeah, you could. Geology has been mapped. In fact, weirdly enough, I just did, in the Digital Kurganet, I uploaded yesterday, I think it was, part 1.3 of the history series. You know, the history series has got 5 parts, so in the first part, we're on the 3rd video, and it's called Pangaea and the Shifting Poles, and it talks exactly about that and how, well, you know, just watch the video, whatever, but yeah, definitely I think it can be done to a certain extent. Senator Slayer says, why do the small hats control everything? Well, because they aim to, because their whole culture is based around doing that. And they've been doing that since biblical times. And, you know, God picked them for a reason, because they were the scummiest of the scummiest of the scum. And he said, I'm going to pick the worst of the worst, and out of that, I'll make the best of the best come out. That's not to say that the current Jews are the best of the best. What he meant by that is, like, you know, Jesus was born in the Judaic sort of, was at that time a Jew. Of course, current Jews are Pharisees. Their religion is younger than Christianity, of course. So they're not the so-called Jews of back then. But, you know, God loves to do that. Picks broken tools and builds a huge castle out of it, you know. So, yeah, Rakir says, yes, Liar's Poker by Michael Lewis. There you go, thanks. Very good book and a very good and quick read. Yes, it is. And so are the other books by Michael Lewis, by the way. He's written 4 books that I've read, and they're all very good. I enjoyed all of them. Senator Slayer says, Key? Q-U-I. I don't know. Ethan W., I appreciate it. I'll give it a read here soon. I'm studying math and computer science and have played a bit with algorithmic trading. Starting to think about what to do after school. Well, you know, I don't want to set you off on the wrong track. There's certainly money in the finance game, although I don't know how much money will last in the current era. But, you know, I think being a prostitute is probably a more honorable trade than being a financial person. Wooly Ram says, there is something truly low about business school MBA graduates. Yes, there is. Mostly their IQ. That's the thing that's surprisingly low, considering. But yeah. Oh, key is a reference to French TV not talking about the hats. Well, the French are... what did the Americans come up with the name of French? The French are what? Cheese-eating surrender monkeys. Yeah. And one of the sailors was commenting on one of the social galactic idiots that agrees with the fake Catholic. And he said, well, he's from French descendants. That's almost as bad as being Jewish or German. That's like... I think, as always, you know, the small hats overplay their hand, and then they get chased out of things. How many families small hat or not run the world? Very few. Oh, pardon me. you know, Soros, Gates, Rothschilds, wherever the Epstein came from, Rockefeller. It's not that many, really. And I just saw today that Elon Musk is now the richest man on the planet. There's some weird shit going on there, because according to Crazy Days and Nights, Elon Musk is a meth head. So, Backstabber says, any opinion about atheists who are all for tradition but are militant on attacking and prohibiting Catholicism? Well, they're idiots. You know, what tradition would you have without Catholicism? And the thing about atheists that you need to tell them, it's like, oh, so you agree that raping children is fine. And they go, oh, what do you mean? No, of course not. I mean, I say, well, if there is no God, there is no moral imperative. So there is nothing at all. There is no argument for you saying that raping children is worse than eating candy floss, you know. And they're going to say, no, of course it is, because it's logical. Well, logical based on what? I mean, there is no God, there is no moral. You know, there is no ethics, there is no such thing. Now, at worst, like William Lane Craig says, you can accuse me of being unfashionable. You can say, well, most people prefer not to rape children. But, you know, if a guy wants to rape kids, well, you can tell him he's wrong. Oh, no, because it would, you know, that sort of thing would create an imbalance and would create a worse society. And so what? Might makes right in an atheist world. So if I can, I should. You know? They just didn't think things through. Atheists are, without exception, atheists are wounded children. They are somebody who's had an emotional upset at a young age, usually before about age 15, 16, and they're emotionally stuck there as teenager rebellion stage. You know, I was briefly atheist because at the age of 7 I realized that the Novus Ordo were complete fucking insane evil bastards. So I cut off Catholicism because I thought that's what Catholicism was. But I mean, by the age of 18, 19, I'd already become agnostic because I could do maths and I could read, and, you know, I read enough biology and chemistry and physics to know that, like, well, the maths doesn't stack up. So I got over it, you know, by the time I was a teenager. It was no more than 9, 10 years before I, you know, I'd say probably, actually it's before that, because at age 16 my brother asked me what I was and I said I'm agnostic. So less than 10 years, from age 7 to about age 16, before I realized that atheism just doesn't make logical sense. But, you know, I've got a pretty high IQ, so the average moron gets stuck because, well, daddy issues or something, and then he becomes atheist for the rest of his life. Any tips on getting used to all the Spanish Catholic rituals? Yeah. Pretend you're not Spanish. Then you don't have to put up with any of that shit. Caleb Kennan says, great question, Backstabber. One of the reasons I stopped calling myself conservative is because I got tired of hearing these people whine about a loss of culture and tradition in America while... Yeah, exactly. Oh, I guess, sorry, I Backstabber, maybe I didn't understand about what you meant by tradition. You mean American tradition? Well, you know, America's like not even 500 years old, so... You know, we've got houses. I think, yeah, we've literally got houses in this country that are older than the entire so-called nation of the United States of America. So yeah, in fact, the house I'm living in now, the original pieces of it, I think, are, you know, about the same time as the American War of Independence. So, honest atheism is a temporary condition. That's absolutely correct, Willie Ram. And Caleb says, while simultaneously denying Christian Catholic culture and traditions. Yeah, it's the Protestant dance. It's like, well, all you need to be is a follower of Jesus. Well, no, that's a lie. Well, you just need to realize that Jesus Christ is the Lord and Savior. No, demons realize that. They're not Christians either. So I upset a lot of people on Social Galactic by saying that anyone who takes the vaccine is clearly not a Christian. The fake vaccine. You're not a Christian. How can you say that? Yeah, it's just a fact. We know the vaccines are made with like baby parts. If anywhere along that process you're taking baby parts vaccine, you are not a Christian. It's simple. But it upsets all the Protestants because they've got no comeback to that. So, but I follow Jesus. No, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't. You say you do. It's different from actually doing it. Backstabber says, well, not that I'd associate myself with them, but I know people who would consider them useful idiots. But if the target is Catholicism, I don't want to give them any credibility or firepower. Vox is sometimes responsible for a lot of problems. And one of them, and we have disagreed with this from way back when. I mean, this is before I did any videos. This was when I don't think I had even been given the name the Kurgan yet, or maybe had been given that name by the Dread Elk. I can't remember. I think it was before I was thrown into the Dread Elk. But, and that was, he says, oh, well, useful idiots and the churchins and the kind of middlemen, the guys who are never for this or the other, they can just be useful. No, I don't believe they are. And I believe those lukewarm fuckers, they need to be shot first and put outside the trench to protect the sandbags. That's what I said back then, and I haven't changed my mind at all. And in fact, over time, I think people are starting to realize I was right. Because the last thing you want is a guy in your own fucking trench who is not on your side. And he isn't. Because like Jesus said, if you're not for me, you're against me. And I totally agree with that. Either you're on board with me, you fix bayonet right next to me, and you fucking charge the enemy when you've run out of ammo, like I'm doing, or you're my enemy. You're not some neutral guy standing on the sideline. You're my enemy. Because if I'm charging the enemy and you're sitting in your trench, all nice and warm, with still some ammo you haven't fired, and not charging over the top, guess what? You're stealing ammo, oxygen, food, a rifle, and a bayonet, and a uniform from somebody who could. So you are the enemy. You're a thief and an enemy, and you should be treated as such. So, yeah. Talk about your radicals. I'm right up there at the front. Woolly Ram. Israeli media has tried pushing a new sub-variant of corona. Didn't take. Evil can't seem to find any competent help nowadays. Woolly, tell us what's the situation there now? Because from what I understand, Israel is one of the most jabbed countries on the planet. So I didn't understand it at first, but now I'm thinking maybe a whole bunch of Israel has been saline shotted. So it's not real things, although some of the statistics I've seen on the death of by COVID injection is apparently pretty high. What about doctors? It's basically impossible to not take it and work. Depends where you are. There's a whole hospital in France that basically said, fuck you, we're not doing any more vaccine shots, and they just carried on. But you don't see that in the news. You see, you guys got to stop watching TV. You got to stop watching the news. I only know about shit happening in Trieste and whatever because people send me stuff. We don't have a TV. We haven't switched on a TV since we got here, and we're not planning to. I read Vox's blog and a couple of other things, and that's about it. And I frankly don't give a crap. I'm like, I don't really care what's going around the world. I just keep doing my thing and do whatever I want, pretty much. No real change. if and when some people come to my door trying to jab me by force, well, then there's going to be some bodies. But I'm not complying with any of their shit. I'm not getting a fucking vax shot. I don't give a fuck. I'm just going to keep doing what I do. And, you know, if I go in a place and they sort of say, oh, have you got a green passport? I'm just like, no, I don't. And I'm just going to do what I'm going to do. They can all fuck off. And if a particular guy gets up my ass too much, well, then I just won't spend my money there. It's not that difficult. Also, by the way, where can I find Vox's blog? The original seems to have gotten zucked a while ago. I think it's, well, let me just check. I think it's something.net now. Let's have a look. It is, yeah, it's voxday.net. There you go. Slanty Chauffeur Bear says, if you're not the doctor, you could inject or write anything you want. Yeah, if you're the doctor, exactly. You know, if you're the doctor, you can say, oh, yep, I jabbed this guy, and just chuck it in the bin. And I'm sure there's doctors doing that. I know of doctors in the UK that were willing to do that for £1,000 a piece. For £1,000 a piece, they'd give you a fake vaccine shot. Oh, they'd give you that real vaccine that say they'd given it to you, but they actually haven't. And I'm sure that in Russia, it doesn't cost you that much at all. Speaking of doctors, what percentage of doctors do you think have honored their oath? I would say very few. I'd probably put it at about 20% if I'm being optimistic. And the reason I say that is because there were several studies done. Again, who knows how correct they were, but I remember about Nazi Germany and who acted more towards, you know, like fucking people up, basically. And doctors were right up there along with lawyers and a bunch of other types. And you'd think, oh, well, doctors took the Hippocratic Oath. You got to understand, it doesn't matter what the paperwork says. You've got to look at how these people have been trained. Doctors are circus monkeys. They've been trained for 7 years to do exactly what they're told and tick the boxes in the correct order that they've been told to tick them. That's what they do. You know, they're just monkeys. They're circus monkeys that do what they're told. That's it. And so when some guy comes up and says, you gotta jab all them people and kill them all, it's best for them. They're like, yes, sir. Okay, sir. That's what they do. And Ilya says, I mean that you aren't allowed to work as a doctor if you haven't taken the COVID vaccine. Where? It says who? You know, the world is degrading so fast that pretty soon you're going to have people saying, well, I've studied as a doctor, I can do the doctor work. I'm just going to work for myself, fuck it. And I don't care what the law says. And people are going to go to them and pay them cash money because that's what they'll do. Elia says, may not even be able to complete the studies because they won't let you into clinical practice. Yeah, look, I don't know. Elia, maybe you're studying to be a doctor. I don't know. You're a pretty young dude, I guess. But don't believe what you see in the news. You know, according to the news, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't travel, you can't. I know people that have driven across fucking Europe without being, and eaten at restaurants, and they've been asked for the green pass maybe 3 times. So. Wally says, I don't know the truth of the matter. I treat all local media as a psyops. They might have pushed the corona fear pedal for too long. Yeah, but Wally, what I'm saying is your personal experience. Are you like finding out, hearing about people dropping dead from the vax shot or not? And Elia says, I'm 2nd year medical school. Yeah, it's tough. It's a long way to go. Maybe think about being a plumber or a bricklayer or, you know, yeah, people need doctors. But if they're not going to let you finish your studies, It doesn't take you years to become a plumber. Just get on a building site, start work as an assistant. Within a year, you'll know everything there is to know about being a plumber or a bricklayer if you pay attention and you work hard. Woolly Ram, on the other hand, I was surprised there haven't been public hangings yet. I'm not surprised about that at all. Because most people are idiots, and even more so, most people are cowards. AJ says, I went to medical school for a year and realized the Circus Act. So at the alarm and objections of my family, I went into a trade school to learn HVAC work. I believe that's air conditioning work. And yeah, in the States, you're going to have a lot of work for that. In the rest of the world, not so much. But yeah, be an electrician or yeah, if you're going to be a civil engineer or an electrician, literally a bricklayer, a baker, people need that shit. People still eat bread. People are going to have houses built. Wherever you go, whatever's going on, you're going to get houses built and houses getting knocked down. Buildings coming up, buildings going down. That happens. Rakir says, I can confirm that here in Italy, I've never been asked for a green pass, not even once, so far at least. I mostly frequent places where people know me. Yeah. I've been to a place where I was asked for a green pass and I said, no, I don't have one. But I spoke nicely to the person there, and I was actually back there today, and the same person asked me, no, please sit down. And I actually did the decent thing, and I said, you know what, I don't want to put your business at risk or whatever, so I'm just going to step outside. But you and I both know that pass is bullshit. And I made sure they were aware of that. To which they responded, if you've got an activity, you've got to be careful. And, I get it. They're scared for their business. That's their livelihood. They don't have anything else. These are not people that, can pivot and change their life around in a minute, so. Woolly Ram says, personal experience, older people are gone. Middle-aged people have aged a decade in 2 years. The mask mandate is ignored by half the population outside of government buildings. Good. And Elia says, university is free here, so it would be a waste to not use my opportunity for a stable, high-paying job. Do you really think that doctors make a lot more money than plumbers or electricians or bricklayers for that matter? Because I'll tell you, in Europe, not always the case. But look, I don't want to dissuade you from your chosen profession. If you want to be a doctor, carry on being a doctor. But if they're not going to let you finish your studies, what's the point? Or move to a country where they can let you finish the studies. I don't know. But play the system. You got to play the game. You got to jiu-jitsu your way around the rules. That's just life, man. In Finland, yeah. Woolly Ram says, it's darkly amusing how the overbearing evil powers that be want to inflict on us requires a functional, moderate trust society. Yeah, it does. Okay, so I think Elias is saying that in Finland the doctor gets paid more than a plumber. Give it time. People are not going to go to doctors soon unless they've got some serious shit going on. But you want your toilet flush. Michelle, not a spare bear, says, hi Kurgan, my aunt died 2 weeks after the jab. My friend developed fast-growing brain tumor glioblastoma after upper nasal swab. She bled uncontrollably, broke ethmoid bone. Fucking hell. For a glioblastoma, ping me an email. I used to have a sister-in-law that had a glioblastoma stage 4. There is one drug that I'm aware of that actually might help, and has helped. It helped my sister-in-law live another 4 years and have a child before it came back, unfortunately. And she did not receive the drug again in time, so she passed. But there is one drug that for glioblastoma works. It's a very salty kind of a thing that uses peptides. Long explanation, but I've got a document somewhere. Ping me an email. I'll find it and I'll send it to you. Wooly Ram says the richest doctors are dentists and plastic surgeons. Indeed. Actually, I need a dentist more recently. I got a tooth that's giving me a bit of problems. Backstabber sends his condolences, as do we all, I think. AJ says plumbers will make more. A flushing toilet is a more likely problem than a health issue. Many people increasingly don't trust doctors anymore. Well, I'm one of them. I've never trusted the fuckers. Because, you see, I've studied civil engineering, and in the first week of civil engineering, I realized, oh my god, I thought this was an exact science. These people are just fucking guesstimating everything. Built for a 50-year storm. Oh, wait a fucking minute, a 50-year storm doesn't mean it happens every 50 years. It means it could happen tomorrow. Just statistically, it happens 1 in 50 years. And anyway, why are you only building for 1 in a 50-year storm? What the fuck? That means that whatever you're building likely is going to get knocked down within 50 years at worst, at best, really. So, you know, I realized then, wait, if that's what they're doing in engineering, what the fuck are they doing in, you know, medical shit? And like my grandfather used to say, well, doctors bury their mistakes. And, you know, he was born in 1907, I think. So, now, the thing is, you've got to understand that, oh, and more recently I was told by a lawyer when I was recounting this, and I said, you know, I realized when I studied engineering, and they said, oh, well, if that's how it is in engineering, can you imagine how much worse it is in jurisprudence? And I was like, fucking hell, you're a lawyer, and you're telling me that what I said applies to engineering is obviously a lot worse in the legal system, which is supposed to be about the lives of human beings. You know, it's, yeah. Slanty says here in the States, doctors don't clear their student debt until their 50s. Yeah, there you go. You're most welcome, Michelle. How did I miss this notification? Good evening from Ohio. Hello, Sam. Elias says to Woolly Ram, that's often the case, but specialist surgeons make insane bank also. The demand is high, but there are only a handful of skilled surgeons in the world for each anatomical structure. And Michelle says, thank you, AJ, it means a lot. Yeah. Laura Bear says, the boomers convinced their children that skilled labor was for morons. Thank God some don't listen to that horrible advice. Indeed. And L16 says, I trust our large animal vet far more than any given doctor. I agree. I absolutely agree with you. And by the way, veterinary school is longer than doctor school in most cases. And you know, again, medicine is far from an exact science. In my family now, any one of the kids gets a cut or anything, they just, and the mother as well, they all just come running to me because they've realized I actually know what the fuck I'm doing when it comes to injuries like that. And that's just because I had so many of them myself, and you know, I've fixed other people and whatever. You know, I've seen a lot of shit like cuts and contusions, wounds of different kinds, injuries of different kinds, broken bones, pulled muscles, all that shit. And there is such a thing as laying on hands. It does exist. Elia says top tier sports team fly their players around the world to get a good surgeon. Yeah, okay, fair enough. yeah, I think I'll keep my thoughts on that to myself. I suppose somebody needs to do that job, I guess. And if you're temperamentally suited to it, so be it, I suppose. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I reckon I definitely had the eye and skill and coordination to be a surgeon, but I don't know that I had the inclination. It's not something I'd want to do as a job, day in, day out. I wouldn't mind doing it in an emergency or if it needed, but it's a lot of trouble to go through just in case. AJ says, how are the preparation for the olive harvest? Terrible. Um, I need to get a bunch of boxes with holes in them to collect the things, and I'm on my own, so I don't fucking know that I'm gonna be able to collect enough to make it work. But yeah, I need to move my ass on that. Farmer Grady says veterinarians are paid to keep working animals alive and profitable. Indeed. Wally Ram says, from my limited experience to the opposite that what the modern medicine recommends, I've solved most of my back issues by walking barefoot and strengthening my ankles, knees, etc. Yeah. Also, not always, but if you can lie on a floor that is relatively comfortable, and by that I mean that it doesn't make you cold, so a wooden floor, maybe put a thin blanket or something. But if you can actually lie on the floor properly and find the position, because we're not used to lying on a hard floor, so at first it might actually make things worse if you don't get yourself set properly. But if you do and you allow your body to relax enough to like settle, that can also like click things into place again. And another thing is if you've got those like I don't know what they're called, those electrode machines where you put like a little patch that sticks to your skin, and then you can run a current between the two patches and it like twitches your muscle. That can sort of rewrite, because say you get a muscle tear, it causes an injury, but then after like 5, 6, 7 weeks, whatever, that injury is healed, but the muscle memory remains like tense. So if you run a current through it that just like makes it twitch, it forces that muscle to let go of the tension, and it like basically fixes it up, and that can also be quite helpful. Yeah. And Woolly Ram says, while modern medicine would have me in supportive shoes and braces that would atrophy my body. Absolutely. Absolutely. Remember, you just got to work at stuff. You got to work. I've written a diary about my healing of my Achilles tendon rupture after I got that surgery by some fucking guy who failed as a butcher. And thank God I did my own exercise and stuff. Otherwise, I'd probably be a gimpy, sort of limping, slight hunchback or something. And Michelle with the spare bear says, my boomer mom convinced my brothers not to attend college. One has a construction company, another an electrician. Gay half brother has a salon, all doing well. Yeah. People need buildings, people need electricity to keep working, and they need to get their hair cut, unless they're like me, And there's only a few of us virile men whose hair falls out because of their excess testosterone. So yeah, if you're a half gay hairdresser, or what, gay half brother or whatever, then be a hairdresser. AJ says, I absolutely agree about sleeping on the floor. I threw out my mattress 8 years ago and just sleep on a Japanese futon. Yeah, I did that for a long time, Japanese futon. Although sleeping on a proper full-on wood floor I can do it, I've done it, but it's not ideal for me. I've got a pretty loose, stretchy kind of body. My joints and everything go like a lot further, even for my there we go, even for my age, and generally I've always had a very ability to stretch beyond what most people can. So in that respect, I tend to need a little bit more support than most, because if I lie on a pretty hard floor, what happens is my body will tend to relax to the point where um, it misaligns, because it's, like the human body is not actually perfectly straight. So a little bit of a futon or something is best for me. Sam says, yes, sleeping on the floor relieves my middle back pain. Sometimes it is the only thing that does. Yeah. Fremen on the Sand says, why did our ancestors make beds in the first place? To get us away from mice? Well, I don't know. My brother said that, to be civilized, you need to have a bed that's off the floor. But yeah, I don't like sleeping directly on the floor either, because of dust and shit like that. I do it, if you go camping or something, I'll sleep in a sleeping bag in the forest, but that's different, because there isn't actually really dust in the actual, unless you're in a desert or something. But, and the futon is fine as long as you're in a proper Japanese house, where you take your shoes off at the front door, the house is clean, there's no actual dust on the floor, you got a proper floor where a futon can lie on without making a mess. And I lived like that for a number of years, so that's fine. But I do prefer my bed off the floor as well. So Freeman on the Sand, that's a good question. I wonder myself. Well, like I said, mostly dust, dirt, bugs, creepy crawlies in the night if you're in a cave. I think it's a decent idea to sleep off the floor, personally. Like I said, unless you've got a specific setup where the floor where your bed is in any case a pretty sort of safe zone. But I've been going for about an hour. It's been pretty good talking to you guys. I quite enjoy the random questions and the random diversions in thought. And I'm on my last couple of sips of wine, so you got any pressing Kurgan-like questions? Go for it. Now's the time. I'm going to take a couple more and then I'll call it a night. AJ says I'll have to build a platform bed frame and see if that makes a difference in my sleep. I did that, actually. I slept on a futon for years on the floor, and then I moved house, and it was like they had a tiled floor there, and the futon, for whatever reason, would collect moisture if I put it directly on the floor. So I built myself, like, it was only that high, like a wooden frame with like slats on it, and I put the futon on it, and it was really comfy. I slept on that with my first wife as well, and yeah, we were comfortable, and it seemed to help our back. She had some back problems, and it was pretty good for her as well. Michelle says, I came across some old videos. You were helping demonstrate Systema movements. Well, that's interesting. Which videos were that? I'm curious to know, Michelle. What, on YouTube? Or, I mean, I've done seminars and stuff, so there probably is some lying around. I don't even know. I'd like a reminder of where to join the digital Kurganet. I tell you what, Sam, I'm gonna type it right here. It's pretty easy to remember, kurgantv.vhx.tv. There you go. There's your link. Caleb says, any advice on disciplining a rowdy toddler? Wow. Well, you see, I've got an almost 2.5-year-old. Unfortunately, he's being a little bit spoiled by one of his older sisters, which was not properly raised for the first few years of her life. And my advice on toddlers, children in general, is there's no real difference between them and a dog. They gotta know you love them. You know, and I had my wife, I gave her like a little pendant with this truth on them. On one side it says love, and the other side it says bullet, and it's a little heart. And that's how you raise kids. They gotta know you'll take a bullet for them, and they're gonna, because that lets them know you love them. But at the same time, you gotta kick their ass. How do you train a dog? If he shits on the floor, you put his nose in it, you hit his head with the newspaper, and you throw him outside. And you keep doing that every time he takes a dump or every time he takes a piss in the house. Guess what? After about a month, that dog will not piss or shit in the house, and it will let you know when he needs to go outside. Kids are no different. Really, they're no different. And it's, you know, in the Bible, spare the rod if you hate the child. You know, and I don't mean you need to hit them with a stick or anything, but if you don't discipline your kid, if you don't teach him that you are his father and he is to obey you, and at first it's not a matter of, well, you got to respect, and you see that my wife that makes that mistake. She tries to discuss, philosophize with the children. It's like, first of all, they're not stupid. They're playing you, and you're the idiot if you let them play you. They will play you from the age of fucking 9 months. So don't put up with any of that shit. Second, they're not retarded. If you kick their ass because they're doing something wrong, they know exactly why you kicked their ass. And you don't have to talk anything. You don't have to say a damn thing. You literally get the smack on their ass when they do something wrong, and they know exactly they shouldn't do that shit. Of course, capital corporal punishment is evil and you'll end up in jail, and I don't know, depending on whatever country you're in, that might be the case. I don't know. But it's fucking retarded. Do you really think that the guys who went to the Crusades, like, had a discussion with their kid about, well, son, no. That fucking kid sat down at the table and didn't touch the food until the father sat down at the table. Didn't dare to, because it was disrespectful. And you can say, well, that's extreme. Is it? Is it extreme? Or is it just good manners? Because while it would be considered rude for you to start eating before your father sat at the table, if some undisciplined fucking oaf came in, you know, drunk and talking crap in your house, you, as the young son, were totally entitled to kick him in the balls and knee him in the face and throw him outside. Because that kind of behavior is just not acceptable. And it was a better world. Because men were men, no sheep were nervous, and women were women. And the kids were happy and disciplined. Thank you, Michelle. I appreciate that. Freeman says, no question for now. Just hope you survive in the beast system. Don't take the mark. There's no way I'm taking that fucking vaccine, dude. No way at all. I don't think even if I'm dead, they'd be able to jab it into me. I think some part of my spirit would kill them dead. Wally says, why do you think anyone starts smoking tobacco? Generally peer pressure and stupidity. I don't know anybody that's ever started smoking without it being because they want to look cool, or their friends did it, or they want to be part of the gang. And as I was utterly, from birth, completely unsusceptible to peer pressure, I smoked the entire whole 3 cigarettes in my life at about age 12, 13, thinking, okay, what is this shit, you know? And after the third one, I was like, I don't like the taste. I don't enjoy this. Fuck it. And, you know, pretty much never touched one since. My son is 2, doesn't listen at all. Again, I don't know what your view is on a smack on the ass, but Everybody listens when it hurts. Dogs, look, 40 years of martial arts has taught me that human beings are only stupid when they're allowed to be. There are very few who are stupid when it causes them physical pain to continue being stupid. Very, very few. Even the South African cop only took 4 smacks in the head before he realized he didn't want to catch a 5th one. Most people, they don't even go to 3. So Michelle says they definitely test your limits. Yeah. Well, think of it this way. If you're not willing to discipline your own son for his own good, what chance have you got to fight against the beast system? Backstabber says, do you have plans for history lessons on Islam in the future? Lots of revisionist historians have this idea of conquered Spain being civilized by the Muslims, and that is the oldest religion. Yeah, don't worry. We'll cover that. Although, if you read God's Battalions and Bearing False Witness, both by Rodney Stark, it'll disabuse you of any of those notions. Oh yeah, look, my son has got me as a father, his mother as his mother, and he's a Taurus. They don't get more stubborn than that. But yeah, the thing is, they actually appreciate a certain level of discipline. And my son the other day, he like popped open his milk bottle while he was in bed, so the whole bed got fucking wet. I had to take off the blankets and stuff, and I told him, you little prick. And then his pillow was all wet, and I had to change him. I had to change the bed sheets. I had to change the pillows. But his pillow was all wet, and so was one of mine. So I only had 1 pillow left, and I put my pillow down. He didn't get a pillow. I threw him in the bed and was like, shut up now, go to sleep. And I'm like, oh, but Daddy, shut up, go to sleep. And I lay down in bed next to him. And then after like about a minute, he just lies there still, and then he like sneaks up to me, blows a fart, gives me a kiss, and goes, bam, because that's what he says when he blows a fart. And he goes, hee hee hee. I'm like, yeah, okay, that is funny. And but he knew. It was like, yeah, Dad's pissed off with me, but I'm just gonna give him a little kiss, a little hug, blow a fart on my ass, say bam, and yeah, he's cool with it. And he went to sleep. That's fine. But the girl, because it's like the mother gets in the way of me disciplining them a certain way or whatever, she carries on being spoiled, and she answers back and stuff like that, and you just gotta break that shit. None of my kids will answer me back. I'll be like, no, not to do that. And it just takes a bit of disciplining, and then that's that. Yeah, and Sam says, if you don't discipline your kids, then the sheriff will. Yeah, or somebody else. They'll end up in some serious trouble. So AJ says, I agree. My dad would whip me if I did something wrong or violated his authority. It made me a better man as I got older. Indeed. Just because also as a good father, look, at the beginning, like I said to my wife, he says, oh, but they just do that because they're scared of you. And I'm like, yeah, exactly right. And that's how it should be. I don't give a shit if they're scared. Oh, but they won't like you. I don't care. I don't give a flying fuck. They're going to do what they're told, when they're told, as they're told. End of. And it begins with fear. I agree. But there's a thin line between fear and respect. And as they get older, and as they start to behave properly, and as they start to understand, I don't mind my kids pushing boundaries. I mind right now because they're pushing boundaries they shouldn't push, and they're pushing the wrong boundaries. And given that they're my kids, I already know they're going to push every fucking boundary that there's going to be put around them in life anyway. And I want them to stay out of jail. And if they do something wrong, not to get caught. That takes experience and a lot of training. So, and as they get older, it's be like, even now, my son will do some shit where it's like, here's a story. So he started doing something fucking weird. Like he was whacking me, or he was whacking his sister or something. He whacked somebody when he shouldn't have. It might have even just been me, but I was like, no, that's wrong now. Stop that shit. We've done playing now. And he did it again. I was like, no, that's it. Now you're going to say sorry. And he's like, no. And I'm like, fuck you. You're not going anywhere. I'm going to keep you here, trapped. I held him down with my legs or something. Like, you're not going anywhere until you say sorry. And like, no. And he cried and he fought. This went on for like 15 minutes. And then I was like, dude, you're going to get a smack on the ass now if you don't say sorry. No. And he got a smack on the ass. No. And he got a smack on the ass. And his mother was like, I could feel her freaking out, like in the corner. She was just trying to keep quiet, like, oh, he's only a little boy. Smack on the ass, smack on the ass. And eventually he's like, listen here, son, this ain't gonna stop until you apologize. And he's only like 2, right? Smack on the, and eventually get it. It's like, okay, daddy, I'm sorry. All right, you can go. And you're like, and as soon as I let him go, he goes to the edge of the bed. And then he goes, Daddy. And he runs away. And it cracked me up. I didn't punish him for that. It was fine. Because he was like, yeah, you made me say sorry, but fuck you, kind of. And I get that because he's a boy. He's a man and he's my kid. So that's fine. And I want him to be like that with the outside world. But he's got to understand, in here, son, even if I'm 98 years old and shitting my pants because I've become incontinent in my old age and got Alzheimer's, don't you fucking dare step out of line. Because 90 years old or not, beat your ass. Somehow, some way, I'll find a way. So he needs to understand that, because if you don't have that discipline, if you don't have that respect for the correct authority, it'll affect your whole life. And plus, with my daughter, it's quite funny. She's got a very good sense of humor. And I've told her some fatherly wisdoms, like when we drive in the car and we're just the two of us, I like have these conversations with her. One of the first things when she came here and I drove her down from Venice, and I was like, daughter, do you know what's the most important thing in life? And she's like, gets really serious. What, Dad? Toilet paper. And she's like, she laughed. Well, toilet paper? Yeah, toilet paper. Do you know why? It's like, because you need to wipe your ass. Like, because life is full of shit, daughter. And if you don't have toilet paper, you can't clean it up. Sometimes there's more shit than toilet paper. But you need toilet paper. We're not Indians. We don't use our hand. And, she burst out laughing. And, so that there's like, she gets it, she gets that sort of thing. And like the other thing is like, remember, toilet paper is the most important thing, but even more important than that, you never lied to your father and you're never ashamed to tell me anything. Those, that comes, I told you that before I told you the toilet paper is the most important thing in life. And then like, more recently, we had another deeper conversation when she was upset about, some people and some things that were going on and whatever. It's like, look, daughter, I've already explained this to you. She's like, what are you talking about? We never talked about this. Yes, we have. What's the most important thing in life? Toilet paper. Why? Because there's a lot of shit in the world. Yeah. And what is most of that shit composed of? She's like, shit? No. Other people. That's what the shit is. Other people. And she burst out laughing again. But she got it, And, you could say these are unconventional educational techniques, but they work. And they get the point across. And Dancer says, my boys have been emotionally manipulating me for as long as I can remember. Well, they must have learned that from you, because emotional manipulation is a female thing, and it's women that teach them that. But my little dude has been resisting his mother since he was born. She keeps saying, like when he's going to bed, like, I love you. Mommy loves you. Do you love mommy? Mommy loves you. And he's just like, just keeps quiet. Doesn't say anything. Or at most says, bye, mommy. I was like, yes! Don't you ever bend to them. What is not learned on the ears will be learned on the hide. Indeed. See, the 16 is a farmer and a very kind-looking man, but he knows. Woolly Rams, what I refused to learn from my father, life taught me the hard way. Indeed. Now, I learned some hard lessons from my dad, but because I'm such a hard-headed fuck, I still had to learn some harder lessons. And I know that my son's got a similar fucking path ahead of him, so, you know, I can't backslack there. Backstabber says, yeah, never went along with the Stefan Molyneux dogma. Stefan Molyneux is some kind of a fag. He's from Canada anyway. They're all gay. At 16, kids, particularly boys, go nuts without asserted authority around them. So they start acting up to find it or become it. Yeah, exactly that. Because he started doing that. He's like, he gets shouting like, no, no. And I'm like, you're going to cut that shit out right now, boy. And he's like, okay, can't do that shit with daddy. But then like his mother comes to me and goes, I can't control him. He doesn't listen to me. You know, so I'll give him a smack around the ear. But even if I do it, it's like, and this is a difficult concept to understand. You should never hit a child with like emotion, or that's just wrong. Because whatever you put in that punishing little smack on the ass or whatever it is, that's what goes in. What's inside you is what they get out of it. And like women are emotional, it's just like, I don't do that, bang! And that's what he gets. Chaos. When he gets a smack from his dad, it's like, even if it's instant, because, you know, if he's like done shit where like he's thrown or tried to hit his sister in the, you know, his little sister in the head with like something heavy, and it's like, not only did that get blocked, but he got an instant awareness of that is wrong. And it was instant, but there's not, inside me, there's no like rage or even if I'll give him the appearance, you know, to frighten him, to like get him to stay away from that. But inside me, it's just a discipline. Like, you know, 2 seconds later, I'm perfectly calm. There's no, you know, and you can feel that. So it's like, oh, and now it's like kind of a fear thing. But like a couple of years from now, it's going to be like, wait, that doesn't do that shit unless there's a reason. And he's smart, so he's already starting to get there. Where now I just like kind of look at him and I'm like, no. And he's like, sometimes he doesn't like it and he tries to smile his way past, and I'm like, that's not funny, dude. And he's like, okay, daddy. So he's already there, you know. It doesn't take a lot, and it's not like, you know, it's not like you're beating him with a baseball bat around the head or anything. You know, you're not taking a belt to his face or anything like that. Smack on the ass or smack on the back of the head or whatever. It's like, it's a way to help him know where the line is. That's it. Pedro Roxa says, hello, nearly missed this one. Woolly Ram, I think it was Space Bunny that said something to the effect of, it's my job as a parent to make sure my kids are ready to become civilized people. Yeah, I read that. I don't particularly agree with that, because it depends on your meaning of the word civilized. I don't want my kids to be fucking civilized. I want my kids to be smart enough that they don't become domesticated. I want my kids to be smart enough to do the right thing and get away with it, because the right thing is almost illegal now. I want my kids to be smart enough to do what needs doing and not pay the so-called consequences that bullshit society would try and impose on them. So I don't know that that's civilized. It's what I call civilized, but my idea of a civilized planet, although my planet would be a lot more efficient, clean, polite, and beautiful to live in, but in order to get there, a lot of fucking morons would simply not procreate because their genes would end quite rapidly. So, yeah, Michelle says, if you don't listen, you're going to feel, was a saying we often heard. Yep. My saying is more like, it's your choice. You can either pay attention, or I'll make you pay attention with the end of my foot in your butt. So, sounds like my wife and son. Yeah. You know, this is going to sound so bad, but again, women don't have agency, really. They just, you know, I've seen this from, like, my mother up. I'm not, my mother's a perfect example. I mean, while she was with my dad, it was like, oh, whatever my dad believed and thought and that was great. Then they broke up, they divorced and whatever. She was with this other guy, and it's like, he's a completely different guy from my dad. And now whatever this guy thought was like great, oh, that's great. I'm like, wait, what? You know, she went from like, I mean, the guy that she ended up with was like, he liked Harleys. And she was like, oh yeah, the Harley meeting is great. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? And my dad, for whatever his fault, thank God, you know, he's a boomer or whatever, he's never been into anything like Harleys. Hippie shit. And, you know, I agree with him on that point. And it's just like, women don't really have agency. They just go with whatever guy at the moment makes them feel the most tingles or whatever. And whatever agency they do have is pretty limited. And then they've got all their emotions and the hormones and all the other shit. So they just gently have to be politely channeled their energies in the right direction. And again, like kids, dogs, and everything else, if they're not going to listen politely, then they better get the fuck out, or, you know, they're going to listen impolitely or whatever. But that just causes stress. You know, if you have to argue about every fucking little thing, why do you know, that's not good. And very few women, I was having this conversation a bit earlier, very few women understand what their role should be. And it's not their fault, because they've been brainwashed like all of us for, you know, for the last 80 years that, oh, equality and this and that and that. No, there is no such thing as equality. And the best relationship between a man and woman is where the woman, you know, gives her opinion when it's requested or when she wants to, but ultimately understands that whatever the decision made by the man, that's what goes. And, you know, it is difficult to understand that, because most men, unfortunately, nowadays are complete fucking idiots. So why would you just accept what an idiot says goes, when occasionally the woman is, you know, smarter than the guy or has a better idea? Now, and that happens even in the good relationships, which is why, you know, you should listen to your wife from time to time. But ultimately, the wife needs to understand she's not the captain. At best, she's the XO. And the XO does whatever the fucking captain says. Now and then, the XO can make a suggestion, and the captain can take it on board and decide, yeah, that's a good idea, and we'll do that. But ultimately, the decision is the captain. It's not a partnership. It's not a democracy. It's like the military. I'm the captain, you're the XO. That's it. That's how it is. Those who understand that, they have a much happier life. Those who don't have an uphill battle. So, Son of a Gun says, I know that prisons aren't filled with people who were raised peacefully by their parents. Really? I think you're wrong. But even more importantly, I think there's a lot of people that are not in prisons that should be. And there are a few people in prison that probably shouldn't. So, Freeman says that remove warning labels from everything. If you get scalded by a hot water tap, that's your fault. Holy Ram says, if your wife is anything like you, I don't doubt your children have a single domesticable gene in their sequence. Yeah. Unfortunately, my wife is, in some respects, probably even worse than me. So yeah, they don't have a single domesticable gene in their sequence at all. Not even the hint of it. Unicorn Cupcake says, do you think Milo is still a pirate, or do you think he's a reformed? No, I think he is a Freemason, which means he's a butt pirate by default. Um, I don't know whether he's actually taking dicks up his butt or what, and I don't care, but he's a Freemason and he's a fake Catholic, and that is in many ways worse because he's intentionally leading souls to hell by pretending to be a Catholic and pretending that Church Militant is actually Catholic, which it isn't, of course. And Michelle says, I don't believe Milo's reform. If I had to bet money on it, I don't believe it either. I saw him do a little video clip where he kicked a sandcastle down at the beach, and he's full on gay as far as that little clip goes. AJ says, Milo seems like a grifter to me, especially when he's questioned on his Catholic faith as it comes to the current Pope. Yeah, of course he's a grifter. He's like Emo Jones, Tate Marshall, Michelle Varys, his butt pirate friend, you know. Shandy drinkers, the lot of them. Laura Bear says, as a child, when we did wrong, the wait for Dad to get home was nearly as bad as the whipping we'd get from him. Glad for it now, as it helps steer us in life. Yeah, look at that. You see, a dad who comes home, hasn't been there all day, and the mom says, oh, they did this, that, and the other, and then he administers that whipping. Do you think it's easy for that dad to do that? It's not. Unless he's some kind of a fucking psychopath. He doesn't enjoy doing that. He doesn't like doing that. But he's doing that because he knows if he doesn't, that kid is going to end up in trouble. The reason that most people who are in prison are the children of single mothers is because single mothers tend to not discipline their kids that way. And if they do use corporal punishment as a discipline tool, they do it absolutely wrong, as I mentioned a little bit earlier. So, yeah, Michelle saw the photo of him in a bathtub of pig's blood. Well, I've done a video on Milo, and you can look at that little video. I think it's only a few videos ago. He is an absolute Freemason, and the excuse he gives for his Freemasonic thing is so retarded, it's laughable. Woolly Ram says, I haven't given much thought to Milo since you unmasked him. Yep. But a lot of other people have taken notice too. Why does unmasking them drain away all their psychic power? Because they can only operate in the shadows. That's the whole point. They know this. Freemasons, Satanists, all of them. Once they're out in open sunlight, they have no power because normal human beings don't like that shit. So once they're unmasked, they all like, oh, you're just a fake. Oh, you're just a nothing. And that's it. And I think despite all his boostings that he's getting here and there, he's been posting a lot less. You can almost feel he's depressed. And his snark just isn't working as much, and people are not paying any attention to him as much. And over time, that'll just get worse. Yeah, exactly. As AJ says, because they live in darkness, and once exposed, it's over. Indeed. But it is quite deep darkness here, and I need to go to bed. But I thoroughly enjoyed interacting with you guys. And I wish you all very well and a good rest if you're evening where you are, and a good day. Otherwise, I'm getting quite a few decent emails from you guys, which is it's nice to get, you know, to know that people are becoming sedevacantists, and you know, they're carrying on with their life. They're not letting the COVID bullshit affect them, and so on. William Poole says, didn't Milo become an informant for the feds? Guess everyone forgot about that coming out. Well, he didn't. That was kind of, if you actually read the court documents, he just informed on that fucking idiot Dick Spencer, you know, who is a dick dispenser, and who is himself a Fed, so. And then he didn't really say anything else, so it wasn't really as presented. Woody Ram says, good night, sleep tight, don't let the stink bug bites. Yeah, the stink bugs. Oh, that reminds me. I've actually recorded my wife talking about the stink bugs. I'm going to post that at some point. But the recording is only about 1/10 as funny as what she was saying before I actually managed to start recording her on. It cracked me up. I joined the talk and the espresso. Thanks, Kurgan. You're most welcome. Thanks for the stream, Kurgan. Peace to you. Well, good night all, and thank you all for being here. And as usual, keep pumping the digital Kurganet. It would be nice to not have to rely on picking olives out of fucking trees. And thanks for the condolences, everyone. Have a good night. Yep, God bless. And indeed, Michelle, don't forget to ping me an email so that tomorrow I can send you that document. Good night, all.